I recently underwent a surgery on my elbow, which resulted in me being unable to use my left arm for a few weeks. As a gamer, not being able to type or use my arm at all meant I couldn't play any of the games I'd been playing. Knowing this, I began researching games that I'd be able to play using only a mouse or that would require limited keystrokes. Fortunately, one of my gaming buddies has been recommending Slay the Spire to me for years. As I read through Reddit suggestions for one-armed games, Slay the Spire was amongst the top recommendations, so I decided to finally give my friend's rec a chance, and I'm so grateful that I did, as it's a game unlike any that I've ever played. At its core, Slay the Spire is a roguelite deck builder. For those unfamiliar with roguelites, the basic idea is that no playthrough of the game will be the same as the next. Essentially, enemies and other aspects of a roguelite are randomly determined whenever you start a new run. Now, at a high level, the gameplay loop of Slay the Spire is as follows. You're presented with a ladder of enemies, aka the Spire, leading up to a final boss, and are given different paths you can choose to take on that ladder to reach the top. At each level of the ladder, you'll either fight a basic enemy, fight an advanced enemy, enter a shop where you can spend your gold, have a randomized encounter, which is basically a mini event presented in narrative form where you're prompted to make a choice that will alter your journey in some way, or you can rest, which restores your character's HP. You begin each run up the ladder with a deck of around 12 basic cards, simple attacks and defense. Now, each time you defeat an enemy, you're given 3 cards to choose from to add to your deck. As you move up the ladder, the cards you pick will shape your deck into a strategy, if you're playing the right way. And by the time you reach a boss fight, it's extremely rewarding to look at the deck you've carefully sculpted throughout the climb. Now, gameplay is where I was initially concerned. I watched one gameplay video before buying the game and was a bit skeptical. I've always enjoyed TCGs in real life, but seeing the game's relatively static presentation along with very basic looking cards, I was worried that it might just feel like a watered down version of my favorite TCGs like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering. How wrong I was. This brings me to what really makes this game gripping and special. The gameplay. Gameplay loosely feels like shades of Magic the Gathering to me, mainly due to the fact that cards have an energy cost which feels similar to Magic's mana system. However, where I was totally wrong about the game was thinking that only simple strategies would allow you to climb to the top of the spire. While the individual cards may be simple, the card pools are designed in such a way that different cards play off of each other perfectly. And as a player, it's your job to see these synergies and target the right cards for your strategy, or remove the wrong cards from your deck as you climb. By the time you reach the third boss, the final boss, you will need to have crafted an airtight strategy with little wasted card space. If you're someone who enjoys TCGs and deck building, this aspect of the game is extremely enjoyable and gives you the excitement of crafting and running a strategy in real time, as opposed to planning for months for a single tournament. This hooked me instantly. However, as enjoyable as the deck building and card discovery are in this game, they alone wouldn't be enough to make this the most replayable game that I've ever played. And herein lies the secret sauce that makes Slay the Spire one of my favorite games right now. Every single game, every aspect of the game is completely random. And I mean every aspect. Given that the game is a roguelite, I expected to see some variation of enemies and ladder design. And there is, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. In addition to the climb changing, the card pool for each character is large enough that you'll be able to be pushed towards a different strategy each playthrough, even when you're using the same character. The Ironclad, the first character you have access to, has at least 4 or 5 different viable strategies I've employed on my way to a successful run, each of which uses almost entirely different cards from the other. Now, consider that there are actually 4 playable characters, each with their own unique card pool and special abilities, and you've got enough variation for dozens of hours of unique climbs. You'd think this variation alone would be enough to keep a player coming back. And it probably would be. But the devs didn't stop there. In addition to the obvious areas for variation, the card pool, characters, and ladder, characters gather artifacts on their climb that stay with them as they progress. The artifact pool is huge, so even after 25 hours in game, I'm still finding a new artifact or two almost every run. These artifacts alter key aspects of the gameplay loop, changing things like how many cards you draw per turn or offering you extra block points after the first damage your character receives each game. In addition to artifacts, characters can also collect potions as they climb. These are single-use objects that, when used, provide an instant buff to your character, such as upgrading all cards in your hand, and are pulled from a similarly deep pool to the artifacts. With all these different levers that on their own make for a unique gameplay experience, I continue to find the game fresh and engaging even as I approach 30 hours of playtime. While the staggering degree of variation in Slay the Spire is probably my favorite aspect of the game, not far behind is the atmosphere that it creates for players. The musical score that plays in the main menu and during games is skillfully composed and sets the mood for an epic battle perfectly. Visually, the characters and settings are drawn in a cartoonish but not childish fashion that lends itself to a visual dichotomy that's simultaneously serious and somehow a bit whimsical. And finally, an unexpected aspect of the game's atmosphere is the Spire lore, which begins to form a storyline through the different random encounter scenes the player is presented with. While most are self-contained stories, some hint at a larger conspiracy related to why the player finds themselves in the Spire, and the evil that is orchestrating these battles. Slowly gathering the pieces of this backstory gives the player yet another reason to make subsequent climbs, as the story seems to gradually unfold in a unique and authentic way. But hey, these are just my feelings on the game. If you've played Slay the Spire before, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what makes this such a special experience for so many gamers. And if you haven't played yet, or if you've been hesitant to give it a shot, I hope that you'll give this masterpiece a chance. And who knows? Maybe you'll be the one who's finally able to slay the Spire. Thanks for watching.